Call the meeting to order. Maggie's consented to leading us in invocation. Start.
Let us pray. Lord, we're so glad to be here and all be safe. We thank you for this opportunity to serve you and to serve the town that we love and its folks. And we pray that you'll just be with us today in our deliberations and give us wisdom and good judgment. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, the minutes were included within your packet. Do you have any additions or corrections? We have a motion to approve.
I
Moved.
Go ahead.
Second?
Moved, second. Aaron moved. Maggie second. Any discussion? All in favor? Come on, raise your hand. All opposed? Same sign. Okay, approved unanimously. Monthly reports, financials. Number one, Amy.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right. I'm going to go kind of quickly through the May information and focus a little bit more on the latest June information that we've received on sales tax. So moving on to the statement of activities, I'm looking at the current period column. That's the second from the left. And during the month of May, EIC received sales tax of $319,000 and a little bit of interest income. And then on the expense side, EIC paid fees for their monthly administrative services fee, a quarterly fee to the KEDC, and you'll notice that that is $47,500, which is down from the usual $62,500. So that has been renegotiated downward for the rest of the year, and then we'll be talking about that further with the 21 budget discussion next month. Then the normal debt service for the month, and then the first payment, $8,000 towards the Doyle School project was made. And that brings expenditures to $164,000 and a net change in position of $156 to the positive. But what I really want to talk about is sales tax, and I'm going to skip forward to slide number 4. Sounds like some of y'all have already heard about this news. But so last week we received our sales tax for the month of June, and you'll remember the 2-month delay, so that represents April sales. April was the month when things were the most closed down, so the month that we were expecting to see the lowest number. And crazy enough, our sales tax number was up 7% compared to the prior year, and better than budget by almost 8%. And this was the month that we were thinking could be like 40% off of budget. We have requested detail by taxpayer, but we have not received that yet. We have to request that every month as an open records request through the comptroller's office. So we haven't received that yet. The only thing that I can tell you for sure is we can see summary level data on if there's any audit adjustments or prior period, future period, out of period payments. And there's nothing unusual showing up on that. It's current period. I don't know if it relates to one sales taxpayer in particular, something unusual, or if we're seeing across the board increases in, some of the places like home improvement and construction or, something like that. So more to come on that, but certainly not the news we were expecting, but a very welcome surprise.
I thought your COVID column was going to be down 120 or 40,000. Is that column correct?
So,
it shows the same number. It says essentially the same number.
Yeah, so the COVID projection column, what I've done is through June, those are all the actual numbers now. Mm-hmm. And then there's projected numbers for July, August, and September. And I've redone those projections based on this latest number that we just received. And I've redone the projections to assume that July, August, and September are only going to be 10% less than budget. So I've revised those numbers, and that
But your original number in for May and June was like in the 180 range or something, wasn't it?
yes, I do have, pull that up. Yeah, for June, 181,000 is what I was projecting. It actually came in at 326,000.
Right.
And then, last month's report, I still had the more, significant declines showing in July, August, and September. So those numbers were lower than the numbers that you're seeing this month as well. What I'm thinking right now is that, we continue to have high levels of unemployment, double-digit unemployment, and we know that there'll be some government stimulus that is going to be running out over the summer. So, I definitely don't think we're in a position where we can say, okay, we're going to budget up 6 or 7%, on out. So I still would like to conservatively say, okay, we're looking at 10% less than budget.
Well, the detail will help you do those projections because you can look at what's happening at Home Depot and those people, and
correct.
that will give you better numbers.
Yes. So yeah, given the information that I have right now, I don't feel comfortable saying, okay, we can
We're back
go
on
back
budget.
to budget.
Yeah.
Because it could be just something unusual with a single taxpayer or something like that. But if we do see across the board increases, that'll be good news, that hopefully those will continue. But also I'm just concerned about, 11% unemployment. At some point, you would think that there would be an impact to sales tax if we have that
The
many
internet
people
sales
unemployed.
numbers, you didn't get the internet sales numbers either, did you?
I got, the only thing that I can see on the comptroller's website initially is there's something called a single, I think they call it the single taxpayer number. So those are for small internet sellers that don't want to have to look at every jurisdiction and figure out what our tax rate is compared to Bernie's tax rate or whatever. And so they just pay a single rate to the state, and then the state distributes it out. So I can see like a $6,000 in that category, but that doesn't really tell me much of anything. But certainly last month's detail by taxpayer, we did see increases in the merchants that are online-only merchants. We saw, sizable increases there.
But Avery should have been down dramatically.
I mean, you would think that, definitely their stores were closed in April. One thing that's important to remember about them, though, is that the city of Kerrville gets their internet sales. So this would be internet sales that are shipped within the state of Texas and not picked up at a store, but actually shipped to an address in Texas. We get the sales tax for that. I know that they had it. They didn't have a lot of people working, so I don't know how quickly those internet sales were being fulfilled and that kind of thing. But potentially there could be more there than in another town that was dependent on a store being open, because we do get internet sales from them. So, but yeah, it's super interesting. I can't wait to get that data, and hopefully it'll be this week. But good news, and so, yeah, with these revised projections, that puts EIC down $76,000 for the year, so $76,000 less than budget is what we're looking at right now for sales tax, which, I was thinking it would be at least $400,000 off of budget, so much better. It's interesting, too, to look at how the rest of the state is doing. And overall, sales tax payments to cities were down 11% for the month of June. So we're up 7 compared to down 11 for the state as a whole. Looking at some surrounding communities, Fredericksburg down 26% compared to the prior year.
Big retail there, though.
Yes, and definitely all the shops that are tourism dependent and that were completely closed. Bernie was pretty much flat, up 0.38%, so basically flat there. San Antonio, which also has a lot of tourism, down 16%. Austin down 20%. Georgetown was flat, 0.069. And Seguin up 4%. So, it's a very mixed bag, but certainly a lot of areas saw significant declines, and Kerrville did not.
It's almost like the medium-sized cities were flat or okay or up like us.
Yeah, and maybe the cities that aren't as tourism dependent. But yeah, it's hard to say exactly, what the demographic is. But some of these cities that maybe are more just residential sales and that kind of thing, and maybe we continue to have construction going, things like that. We didn't slow down any there, so that could be good for Kerrville as well. So that leads us back to our cash flow projection. This is on page 3 of your slides. And so basically, with these revised numbers, we're looking at healthier cash balances. We ended the month of May with just over $2 million. I've adjusted a little bit on project timing, but we're looking at $2.3 million by the end of the fiscal year based on these new projections. And just to note that this does not have, this only has like signed agreements in it, so it doesn't have any projects that EIC might be considering. But
the 2.3 is your $76,000 shortfall, is that right?
Correct.
So
yes.
that could be higher than that.
Correct. Yes. Yep. It has the 76.
But that should reflect 76,000 short.
Right. Yes. And I also lowered assumptions around interest revenue. It's not a lot, but there's a couple of $1,000 in there for lowering interest revenue assumptions. On that note, EIC is still invested in the municipal pool, and the rate is down to 56 basis points, so 0.56%. Which is better than some, but certainly not the over 2% that we were earning earlier in the fiscal year. So anyway, that's where things stand. Any other questions?
You said the KEDC was down. We dropped that from 15,000 for the
Correct.
the month.
Correct. For the quarter.
For the quarter. And we just negotiated that down as part of.
Is there anything you'd like to say about that?
Yeah, just in speaking with Gil, they felt like it was appropriate to reduce their amount.
Their needs were not as high as they had projected.
That's correct.
Yeah. Did that go across to the other stakeholders too, or just with the EIC?
I believe all of them were reduced a percentage. I'm not sure if that percentage was equal. Of course, EIC's share is
the
quite a bit
largest.
larger.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy, appreciate it. All right, item 2B, EA, please.
Amy touched a little bit on construction projects and how those really have not slowed down, and a big part of that is EIC and your good work in catalyzing activity really across the region. We've got 11 projects to update you guys on. That's, I think, more projects than I think have ever been active from an EIC standpoint, definitely in the last 4 years that I've been here. We'll just jump right in. River Trail Extension, making great progress. We're doing a little bit of erosion control work right there, kind of close to G Street and behind the Petroleum Engineering Building, but we're probably 90% poured. So we think hopefully by the end of July we'll be substantially complete and be ready when we're a little bit more able to reduce physical distancing, go out there and get some ribbon cuttings and whatnot. So working closely also with Schreiner University as they're anticipating their fall because they'll obviously the trailhead is a big component to that. And so we were hoping to do it before school ended. Obviously that didn't occur given the pandemic. So we think we'll have a bigger kickoff as the school year is beginning. So more to come on that.
Was that erosion right there by G Street, was that because of the big rain, something happened, or was it just natural erosion?
No, we've got a pretty significant slope kind of right there behind Petroleum Engineering.
Yeah.
And they had some vegetative clearing that they were doing on their part of the property. And so we just wanted to make sure that we had to do a little bit of re-engineering there just to make sure
okay.
that we could make all that work. But nothing.
Not because of the
significant.
river it came up, though?
No, no.
Good.
Yeah, if you don't mind, again, trying to catch up and get back into EIC mentality. So, great project, looking forward to that getting completed. But to me, it brings up the next question is, when we start looking at the next segment, has that already started? Is there any work being done on that at this time? Or are we dreaming, talking to anybody about that?
Certainly informally, we did have an update to the River Trail Master Plan that had occurred, I guess, probably about this time last year. And so there have been a couple different sections that have been identified. Certainly, we're always working on attaining easements within those different corridors as properties are developing and having conversations with landowners about, their willingness to potentially provide for easements. Certainly, as we engage in the EIC budget process and the council budget process, we'd love to talk about, getting at least some engineering work potentially done over the course of this next year, if that's something that this group is interested in doing.
Obviously, it's something very dear and dear to my heart. Been working on it for 20 years, I guess. I don't know. It seems forever, and I'd sure hate for us to lose that momentum. We're so close to, I know it's probably another 3 or 4 or 5 years to get it done, but I think the sooner that we can get that kind of in people's minds again, and because that next segment's going to be spectacular. It's going to be the crowning jewel on that whole trail system. So we can get from G Street back down to the Arcadia.
What is the next?
G Street.
J Street to Arcadia, okay.
Maybe not all at once, but
Right.
we may do the boardwalk behind Arcadia down to, Bank of America or down to River Guide. We don't know what that's going to be, but that's what I'm just hoping that we're still very active in thinking in those terms.
Absolutely, yeah, we can start to put some closer numbers together for budget purposes this summer, if that's something that the group's interested in.
That's going to be exciting if we can pull that off in the next.
Okay, very good. Tennis center improvements, as we reported last time, that project, just punch list items, but a really great project. Another one that we definitely want to get you guys out there and be able to tour around. They've already had people start to play out there. Haven't been able to host big tournaments yet, but we will get back to that day soon. Aquatics feasibility study. We did punt the kind of community input meeting, kind of the show of what had been put together based off all the feedback that we had garnered over the summer and fall time frame. And so we're tentatively looking at some dates at the end of July, working with Parks Board, and obviously we'll be working with you all in the City Council as well to see if we can get the consultants into town to be able to deliver that report. Olympic Drive infrastructure extension, working mostly on utility connections and relocations along that right-of-way stretch. If you haven't been over there, a lot of great work also occurring, obviously, on the school district side with that building going vertical and really kind of starting to take shape over there. So it's really starting to seem that you can kind of see how it's all going to be put together. So really neat project. Downtown elevator enclosure, we are working with our contractor to hopefully the sequencing of that project so we can minimize the downtime. Obviously recognize that it gets a lot of usage over here, and so we want to make it as least disruptive as possible. Legion Lift Station, happy to report that that project has complete. Punch list is basically complete. They've gone through the testing process through May. Everything's good, so we're in the process of decommissioning the old pump station, and it's basically operational. So that's a big one for that entirety of that corridor, as we mentioned before, and really being able to encompass that growth that can occur within that corridor.
And what about the damage from the recent storm?
Fortunately, we did not have any real lift station damage.
Okay.
We did have some power outages, as you know, across the community, and so we had to have some folks activate and do some manual
Pumping,
VATCON pump work at some of those lift stations. But fortunately, surprisingly, because we've had some very large lightning storms in the past that have damaged some SCADA infrastructure and some other electronics at some of those, we came unscathed this time. So
Great.
we did have some damage across the city and in numerous city facilities, particularly at the water treatment plant. We had some wind damage, but Legion was not one of those. So it performed very well also with the influx of stormwater that often infiltrates into the sewer system. So we were happy to have the
What was the
capacity.
wind speed they
Good.
measured out there?
The wind speed, top wind speed at the water treatment plant measured at 93 miles an hour.
Woo.
Which is part of why
Wow.
some of the building got picked up and moved into the top of the trees.
Wow.
Yeah, what happens to the old
Never
lift
heard of
station
anything
when the
like
new one is fully online?
So we'll go through a decommissioning process. So they've been going through right now and pulling some of the equipment that's still viable for us to use as kind of replacement parts and be able to shelve. But basically they'll cap it, and the route has been rerouted and kind of reconnected to the existing collection infrastructure. But they'll basically cap that room off.
Gotcha. So, but the city will still own the property and it'll just kind of sit there
Yes.
empty, more or
Yes.
less, yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Great example of how you bury $6 million.
Yeah.
This is true. Let's see, where are we at? Loop 534, Guadalupe River Utility Crossing. I think I reported to you all, we are working with TxDOT in designing those plans to utilize the bridge infrastructure. We have existing infrastructure that utilizes that, so I'm just kind of going through that process, gaining approval from them. We were successful in leveraging $1.5 million of Texas Water Development Board funds to be able to make that project. So more to come on that, but we're hoping to have that project fully engineered by the end of the summer.
Just to catch me up, what is EIC's part of that?
EIC was a funder of the distribution and program for the reuse distribution, and so there has been an interest in continuing to report on that as part of that distribution.
There's no future budget line for that from the EIC.
No.
But I don't think we were sure of that because of waiting to hear about how much of the state money we'd get.
Correct.
So-
Yeah, and we'll still need to get bids in, so we'll see where that lines up. But we certainly hope it's going to be
I didn't
within
think
the
there was
budget.
anything, at least on the immediate budget.
No,
for that.
there's not.
Okay.
For the original design that failed, is there any consequence at all from that failure?
We're still working through the legal process on that. Nothing new to report on that at this time.
Takes a long time.
It can. Yeah. Let's see, Thompson Spur 98 infrastructure extension. Most of that work has been completed. I know that they were still doing a little bit of the wet well work right there off of James Drive as you're coming into that development, but the vast majority of the other extension work kind of further to the east has all been completed. So we're excited. They are starting to go vertical on that project. If you haven't been out there, between the roads being cut in and slabs being poured and framing starting to occur, it's really kind of starting to take shape out there. So it's very exciting. Arcadia Theater, they are going like gangbusters. You probably, as you were walking into this building, could hear the construction noise across the street. So they're still shooting for July 3rd. It's going to be a very busy few weeks for them, I think.
On concrete today inside.
Yeah, yes, sir. It's
Yeah.
They're
Pretty exciting.
making good work, no doubt about it. Good progress. Kerrville Airport improvements, working closely with Mary Rohr. She is the point person on managing that project and is working with TxDOT and FAA on moving that forward. So a little bit of a slow process, sometimes working with TxDOT, but they're making it. So they're getting closer. And then last but not least, Doyle School Community Center improvements. They are going through their architectural and design process right now. I know working with Peter Lewis and architects to bring that forward. So I'm hoping that they should have been designed, I think, complete by this fall, I think is what they're anticipating.
So the money that Amy told us went to that project so far was going towards design, I guess?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Be happy to answer any questions you may have. Okay.
Cool.
Thank
Thank you, EA. All right, item 2C. We understand we have Gil on the phone. Somebody patch him through to us.
Charvy, you can go ahead and patch in, Gil.
All right, I'm here.
Welcome, Gil.
Hey, thank you, Ms. Chair, members of the board. So just before I get into the bulk of the report, let me provide a little insight on some of the local numbers and their impact. As far as unemployment, we are at 11.3%. It's still below the state and the national average. We expect it to remain in double digits probably through the summer. We might be surprised, kind of like the sales tax numbers. We might see it decrease, but for now, we're expecting it to remain double digits. But again, it's yet to be determined, and it all depends on the outcome of the virus. Now, as far as sales tax and local employers, we expect those numbers to stabilize. One factor is going to be the reopening of James Avery stores nationwide, the retailers. So that being said, they are our largest private employer, and they have resumed part of their manufacturing operations here. So we're going to start seeing that's going to help kickstart our local economy, both jobs-wise as well as sales tax revenues. And then also on the tourism side, there are reports that are coming out, and just eyeballing it, I could see that there's already a lot of families taking road trips this summer. So that's going to be very encouraging for us. Now, I think one of you all had a question as it pertained to the budget. Yes, we actually volunteered the budget cut when at the height of the pandemic. So I got together with the city manager and basically said, look, we've been hosting a series of webinars, and our message to the local business community is, well, now's the time to tighten the belt and pivot and what have you. We basically said we need to follow our own advice. We need to do our part to help the community as well. So we volunteered that. A lot of that's going to be, there's no traveling at this time. A little bit on the business recruitment as well, and then the marketing. And I'll elaborate a little bit on the marketing side. Moving on with projects, Skymaster. Last week, the city manager and myself, we had a series of meetings with the company's upper management, as well as the president, CEO, and the founder of the company. We spent a lot of time with them. We discussed the proposed sites in the Kerrville area, their viability, as well as financial incentives and some of the workforce options. We also, in the last couple of weeks, have briefed our state officials. That includes Representative Murr and Senator Buckingham, as well as the State's Economic Development Division. So work continues on many different fronts with that particular project, and hopeful that we can land that here in the next few months. Another prospect activity, we did meet with a couple of weeks ago with a group of consultants in the aviation and aerospace sector, and they have some connections to the Kerrville area. So we met out at the airport. They're looking for a site to conduct avionics training and also a service and repair shop of sorts for aircrafts. They were initially interested, or I think they still are, in the Horseshoe Building when they toured the airport. So we need to see where that stands. I'm working with Mary. Mary's working with her board and taking the lead on the project. It's not a huge job generator, but it definitely adds to our plan of developing an aviation and aerospace cluster out at the airport. Again, it was an initial meeting. We still need information from them for our due diligence, and still very preliminary at this point. On business retention, expansion, as well as marketing, we had a joint webinar. We hosted a joint webinar 2 weeks ago with, it was between us, the KEDC, the Chamber, as well as the CVB. It was basically a continuation of the meeting of the marketing minds here in the community. We provided to our local business community an update on different programs. And the CVB, they came in, they provided a ton of information on what the outlook is, and what travelers are expecting to do this summer. And again, it looks encouraging for us, but it's yet to be determined. We've also engaged with local businesses. I think it's about 12, 13 of them that we have featured in our podcast as well as our webinars. We are at 10 podcasts and 3 webinars. And again, just providing information on how to support your local business, updates on federal and state programs such as the PPP loans, stories from some of our local entrepreneurs. And in every one of these sessions, we're always emphasizing local spending. So we're doing our part to put that to have that 7% increase up there. Everything is compiled and accessible. You can listen to it on kerrvilletogether.com. That website, that initiative has been a great tool for the community, for the business community, and also for site selectors who are now asking economic development organizations that we're not going to be visiting communities anytime soon. Put everything that's relevant as far as data for projects, mapping tools, which we already had, and we've just taken it to another level, to have it online. So I would like to note that all of this work that we've done on the marketing and part Bree is a marketing consultant would have charged us about $100,000 for this kind of work. And I've worked with these, consultants in the past, with the podcast, the interviews, the websites, the newsletters, the webinars. It was not initially in our scope of work to physically or manually do this. We were only going to do a fraction of that work via outsourcing it. But with the pandemic, necessity again has become the greatest innovator for us. So we just said, you know what, let's roll everything in-house and let's run with it. Now's the time to actually, do this kind of work for our community. So in closing, again, the pandemic has provided us an opportunity, and that's all it is, an opportunity to really rethink what the KDC is going to look like now moving forward. We've been grabbing best practices from other EDOs, and all of this work is just an example of our organization having to really be nimble, pivot during this time. And I will also, say that we had to take a step back. We were kind of like humbled in the sense that we realized that the importance of small business or local business, from a one-person shop to the bigger manufacturing operations, they all actually have a place in economic development. And it's very evident here in Kerrville as they truly are the identity of this community. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Yeah, you did great. No questions here.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate you calling in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, item 3, consideration of possible action. Annual meeting date.
So just very quickly, per your bylaws, you do have, as we discussed back at the May meeting, the annual meeting is scheduled for the beginning of June, unless the desire of the body to set a different date for that. Given our unique meeting situation right now via the pandemic, the body desired to pick that back up at this meeting and look at a future date. Your regular meeting date for July is July 20th. Staff recommends if it's the desire of this body to move the annual meeting to that date, and we will have the opportunity to both go over a proposed budget for the EIC for next year, as well as for you all to elect officers.
Any comments, thoughts?
Let's have the meeting.
Let's,
Okay, so
one meeting's good.
we'll just need a motion and a vote for you all to set the date and time of that annual meeting.
Motion to set July the 20th?
Annual meeting for July 20th, was it 20th?
Yes.
July 20th, 2020.
I second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Okay. Approved unanimously. Item number 4, executive session. Economic Improvement Corporation may, as permitted by law, adjourn the executive session at any time to discuss any matter listed above, including they meet the qualifications of section 551, 072, 073, 074, 76, etc. Anyway, chapter 551 of Texas Government Code. Following matters. So we have one item here.
Two items.
Oh, okay. Okay. Skymaster and the property.
Y'all want to take a vote to go into executive session, and then we'll close the cameras off. We'll stay in here, but we'll.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session under sections 551.072, 551.087 for those two items.
Second motion.
I'll second.
Aaron seconds. Discussion. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Thank you.
Okay, you just give us a moment, we'll make sure the camera.
All right, executive session is over. Return to the regular board meeting. We have nothing, no action was taken in the executive session and nothing really to report. So we return to the regular agenda. Any possible items for, see possible action for items discussed? None. And items for future agendas, number 6. Anybody want to add Mooney on there?
Yes, I would, actually, if there's anything to report.
So that's
Just
fine.
in terms of looking at future clusters and future options at the airport. I guess that's it. Let's say an update on future options in and around the airport.
We can certainly find some time for Mary Ward to come.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah, their master plan, she could present their master plan would be useful.
That would be helpful because we went out there, but it's been a long time now. I'm sure there's a lot more going on.
I'd be happy to contact her.
Thanks.
Anything else? Any announcements?
I just have one. I'll be out of town on July 3rd through the 17th. So if there's a special called meeting, just take that into consideration. If I can't be here, it's no big deal. But
And I won't be here the 20th. I'm out of town on the 20th. So
20th
somebody
of June?
for July, for the next meeting, I will not be here.
Okay.
Well, then we'll have to elect you.
You gotta watch out for that railroad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Then we're adjourned.